I'm here with Kaylee Bennett, who now actually helps us as a coach in the Online Trainer Mentorship, but it was not always that way. Kaylee joined us as a student, but you're not new to the industry. You started training in 2006.
I did.
Got 2 kids, yes. You're a mom, you're doing all the things. Let's start with just who you work with. Let's start there. Who do you work with? What kind of clients?
Who I work with? Well, I mean, I still train in person and I also train online, and those are different types of clients.
Sure.
So my in-person clients are generally husband and wife couples, and they're a little bit older and retired, and they just love coming in for, talking and getting a good workout, getting stronger, but having that thing to do together. So I love training them. They're great. The oldest ones I have are like 85. So they're so much fun to train and get stronger.
So they don't have physique goals.
No, they want to come in and just have a good time, and it really fills my cup. So I keep those clients around. When it comes to my online clients, I work with women, I would say middle-aged women. So thinking like 30s and 40s, have kids. So moms, right? And have kind of been trapped in that mentality where working out was really wanting to be skinnier. And that's when they really wanted to do workouts. And so when that's no longer the goal, or they don't want that to be the goal, they feel really lost about where to start and what to do and where they kind of fit into the workout space. And so those are the women I love working with, where we can say, hey, fitness isn't just about getting skinnier. We can get stronger. We can get more confident. We can show up for ourselves, because that makes us show up for our children better and for our spouses better and for our lives better. And that transformation is just awesome. I love seeing that in my clients and going that route. So, yeah.
One thing I should have mentioned probably at the beginning is that, with the exception of Drea, who heads up all of our coaches for the mentorship, all of our coaches still actively run their own coaching businesses as well, which I think is pretty important that they're in the weeds too, to be able to connect with their students. So I probably should have started with that. But one thing that I love about what you just said, Kaylee, is that you still work a little bit in person. That seems blasphemous, doesn't it? It's like, oh, I'm an online coach now.
Yeah.
But you found this balance, haven't you?
I did. I finally feel like I have balance in my business and my life, because I think a lot of us started in person, and I remember starting in person and doing split shifts and working evenings and working weekends and taking on any client that you want, because you could make really good money, but you also have to work a lot of hours. And when I was 21 and in university, I didn't care. I just wanted to work. And
sure.
It was fun. And at that time, it was kind of like this, ooh, like you're a personal trainer. It was like that cool career that everyone really wanted to have. And when I finally got in, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm a personal trainer. Like that's like something only movie stars have.
How did you find fitness? How did you find training? What led you to it?
Oh man, I was such a nerd. I didn't work out or anything in school. I was like the 98% average kid and
you were one of those.
I was like, I played violin, and I failed gym class. In fact, like after grade 10 in Canada, you don't have to take gym class. And so I was like, then I'm out. I'm not taking it. I don't want to do this anymore. And, and like, I remember in grade 6, we had to do like fitness tests, and I couldn't do a sit up. And I remember coming home and crying to my mom that I couldn't do a sit up in gym class. And my gym teacher made me feel so horrible.
So when did you start working out?
Oh, like not even then. Grade 6 was like the first time I remember ever trying Weight Watchers, which is horrific, but that's like my generation, right? And like it stuck with me for so long. I'm like, I need to break this. And that's part of the reason I got into working out. I started university in psychology, and I was actually dating a guy at the time, and his older sister was in kinesiology. And in going to his house and chatting with them, I started being really interested in what she was learning about, and I was going to the gym with them, and I decided that that's what I wanted to do. So I switched majors in university and went into kinesiology, and my family and like all my friends were like, what? Like, that's gym class, right? Like, what are you doing? And so I just went that route and never really looked back and got my kines degree and did that. So that's really where it started, but I was not an athlete.
But you were not an athlete. You're preaching to the choir, man. Allison always makes fun of me because, she was absolutely an athlete. She was national level gymnast and cheerleader and stuff. And so she's got like she's thrown them out, but she had bags and bags and bags full of medals and trophies and stuff. And the only award that I ever won was the award that they gave to the kid who tried really hard but still sucked, which was the most improved.
That's like me, or like good sportsmanship. I always got the good sportsmanship awards.
I didn't get good sportsmanship because I was not a good sportsman. But it's just funny. It's like, Calvin always asks, it's like, Daddy, I see Mommy has all these medals. Where are all of yours? I was like, I never won any, son.
That's so funny.
Never won any.
Yeah.
And all of that can be yours.
Totally, right? I'm like, I just don't want my kids. I mean, I guess even if they went down my route, I didn't end up horrible. So I'd be fine if they weren't athletes. But it would be an easier route if they didn't like go a roundabout way like I did and have to kind of come back to it in my 20s. It would have been a lot easier to get into the fitness world having done that like your whole life versus coming in and being like, wow, I can't do anything.
But it sounds like your parents questioned it. Was there pushback in you getting into fitness as a career?
Not from my parents. My parents have always been really supportive of me. I think they're just kind of shocked that that's what I wanted to do because they knew it was such a point of like anxiety for me, like not liking gym class and really hating that type of environment. So they were always supportive. My grandma was not. She's like, why aren't you becoming a doctor and an engineer? You're really good at math. Why are you wasting your time in phys ed? So, but my parents were always super supportive.
I know. That's always the joke in my family. It's like, my dad's an engineer, my mom's a teacher, my sister's a lawyer, my brother is a small business banker, and my other brother's a teacher. And I lift stuff up and down, give or take 6 to 8 times, and lose count at 7. And then put it back in the same place.
But you're doing well.
It's funny.
So it all worked out.
Nobody understands it. So where did you work after university? So you graduated university in 2006, and you started as a trainer with a kinesiology degree. Did you worked full-time in a gym then? Where was it?
Yeah, I actually started as a trainer halfway through my kinesiology degree.
Cool.
So I did my first half of my degree, and then I actually went and lived in Mexico for a year. I mean, my parents hated that, but I just went on vacation and was like, I'm not going to come back. Yeah. And I got a job selling timeshare and being a beach bum in Mexico. So that was kind of like a year in between. And then I came back from Mexico and did the second half of my degree. And that's when I got the job at the gym. It was at a gym in Calgary. It was called World Health Club at the time. So it was one of the bigger gyms they're just in Calgary and Edmonton.
So big box gym training.
Yeah, kind of. It's not quite as big as Good Life, I would say, because they were really just Alberta based. But they did, in their prime, had 21 clubs.
Yeah, they were pretty big. They were the biggest chain out west.
And that was where you went if you wanted to be a trainer. It was very well known in Calgary that that's where the good trainers went, and they paid really well to the trainers there. So it took me 3 tries applying to get the job.
How long were you with them for?
I was with them up until COVID and my daughter was born, so 16 years. Mm-hmm.
So you were with World Health for 16 years as a trainer on the floor?
I was a trainer on the floor for the first 7, and then I got into managing. So I was the fitness manager at one of the biggest clubs, and we were writing $500,000 a year in personal training sales at that club. So I was managing that. I had my first kid. He's turning 7 on Sunday. And I was managing up until I had him. And then I went on maternity leave. And about 10 months into my maternity leave, a director role opened up. So I applied for that. And I actually went back to work 2 months early so I could take on the director role. So when I came back, I was a director and oversaw 4 of the 20 clubs in the city and their personal training departments. So, but throughout all that, it was still a requirement to train sessions. So when I was managing, I was still training, 10 to 15 hours a week. And then when I was a director, I was still training about 5 to 10 hours a week in person too. So, yeah.
And then COVID hit.
That was exciting. I got to lay off my whole staff 3 times. It was so fun. Most stressful time of my life. I remember like March 17th and getting that like notification that things are shutting down and having to get on the phone with like every manager and every trainer. I was at home because it was St. Patrick's Day. It must have been one of my earlier shifts. So my early shifts, I was home at 6. I was still late. My late shifts, I was home at 9. Yeah. And I remember that I thankfully never lost my job because I was a director. So I always had a job through COVID. I went into the gym, but my role changed from cruising around to clubs and chatting with managers and going for coffee and like role-playing sales and teaching business meetings to like calling angry members literally all day, 8 hours a day, calling angry people about memberships. And I was just like, I hate this. What am I doing? But I have a job. I didn't get laid off. I'm still getting paid. I would go into the gym to do the phone calls. So I even got to still work out. Like just got the whole gym to myself. So that was pretty fun. So I just tried to spin it positively and be like, this is what I'm doing. And then I was able to bring back a couple staff as that went because we needed more people on the phones. And 2 of those girls actually work with me in my business now. So it all ended up working out really,
how funny is
really
that?
Well. Yeah.
COVID-19 was such a crazy time, man. I feel like all of us remember exactly where we were when we realized that it was real. Like I was at an office that I rented. So at that point we had a bunch of staff in Toronto and I rented an office out of a co-work space. So we had our own office, but it was within a co-work space. And I remember watching the TV and Justin Trudeau was, on the TV. And we were all there, like people from all different types of businesses, right? We were all watching the TV. And still up until that point, literally up until Trudeau is talking on the TV in front of us, giving his press conference or whatever it is, saying we're shutting everything down. Until that second he said it, didn't think it was real. Didn't think it was real. It seemed, to people who were paying attention, people in the medical community, obviously not, but it just seemed so sudden. I cannot even imagine what you would have had to go through calling the staff and letting them go, calling all of the members and trying to explain to them the situation. And then, of course, it opening up and then closing and then opening up again, but with these restrictions and then closing and like having to be a part of that and manage that. The hours you must have worked. And so what happened then? Because you still had a job through that, but you lost your job at some point.
Yeah. So, that was a big process too. So throughout the COVID process, like the World Health that I was working for had went through a rebranding, like the December before COVID. So March 2020 was COVID. So December 2019, they did a full rebrand, dropped the ball on it a little bit. Like it didn't really go as well as it could have gone.
Okay.
And then the way they managed COVID wasn't great. And I don't want to talk badly of that company because I wouldn't be where I am without them. But the management of that whole time was not done very well.
They did as good of a job as they could, but God, that must have been hard.
Yeah. And I feel like, what kind of happens as companies get bigger and they bring in more and more upper level management is that they stop listening to the people in the trenches. And then you get this large gap and disconnect. I remember when I started with World Health, the CEO was still on the floor doing workouts and talking to all of us. And then by the time I left, I was a director and I didn't even have access to the CEO. Right. So it just changed that that family and community type atmosphere changed. And I think businesses can take note because as soon as you stop listening to your people is when problems generally start happening.
Yeah.
Right?
There's a big movement in Silicon Valley right now to be what's called founder mode, basically to reverse against exactly what you're talking about. Like even the biggest companies are like, no, I'm the founder. What I say goes. Like, I don't care how many layers of bureaucracy there are. I don't care how much management. If this is going to be aggressive and competitive, it has to be this kind of founder mentality, and there has to be a maniac at the front. And I think you're right. I think there's something to that. You're starting to see businesses kind of, even large businesses, shift back in there. I know, I've kind of decided I don't want to run a large business. I was going in that direction at one point, and I was like, yeah, this isn't for me, dog. But I don't know. Even if I were to, there's something to it.
Yeah, just staying connected.
Yeah.
And I think I'm trying to remember the timeline. I had my daughter in February 2021. So, and then in June of 2021, they announced that they had to file for bankruptcy, the company. So I was 6 months into my maternity leave. So at that time, I still had a job to come back to, but I was honestly like still considering whether I would, because that job left me. I mean, we kind of chatted about it a little bit earlier, like 3 days a week, I worked till 8 p.m. Like I had to get my mom to pick my kids up from daycare. I wasn't home for dinner or bedtime, and it was split shifts, and it was like the schedule management between my husband working shift work and me doing that was just a nightmare.
And you would have had then a 3-year-old and a 6-month-old.
Yeah, I was like, how do I even do this? So the wheels were already kind of spinning. And so when that happened, they, as with a lot of bankruptcy and like corporate restructuring, they usually eliminate like the top levels of management. So it kind of was told to me that like your director role is no longer available. You could come back to this like manager role that's a quarter of the salary. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. Like, sorry, but not happening. And so I just was like, okay, well, I have 6 months now where I'm getting some money from the government and I can really figure out like what I want to do. And I had, at that point in time, the company no longer existed. So I no longer had like a non-compete or non-solicit. So I was like, I'm calling my clients. And so that's when I started online. I was 6 months into mat leave. I just started reaching out to clients that I knew would still want to train with me, kind of let them know what was happening. And then, I started off with like, I think I had 15 to 20 clients right off the bat that just wanted to do some online programming. So that's where I started at that time when my daughter was 6 months old.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what were some of the big struggles at the beginning? What troubles were you running into then?
I think just like, I didn't know really what I was offering or how to deliver it. I had a really good friend and mentor that he was doing a lot of online. So I kind of followed what he did as kind of like that stepping stone. It's like, well, he's doing this. So, and he taught me, and I kind of went that route. So, I had a platform and an app that I could deliver programs through. And so I started off that way. I didn't really know where, the only people I was talking to were clients that I had relationships with. So those enrollment calls, were pretty easy because it was just like, hey, this is what I'm doing now. How about it? I think the biggest thing I started running into was as my daughter got closer to that year, and my son was getting older, he was getting ready to start kindergarten, I was really running into the time challenge where I was doing a lot of work in the evening after they were going to bed. But that's also when I was supposed to be spending time with my husband and when I was trying to get my own workouts in. And I also took on another job at that point too, where I was teaching for a college like that had a personal training certification. So I was instructing in the evenings on Zoom then too. So I just crammed a bunch into my like 8 o'clock and onwards time. And there was just like, something's going to give. That's when I hired my first like business coach, because I was like, I need to figure this out. I want to make more money doing online. My EI is going to be running out soon. I don't want to teach forever because that was getting really hard. Because again, I was giving up dinner and nighttime twice a week with my kids to be able to do that. And I just wanted to be able to make that money without having to do that. I mean, time you can't get back, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the part that all young trainers, I feel like, fear is, what I'm doing now is fine, but what's going to happen when I want to have a family? What's going to happen when I I don't know, start to go up a little bit, start to have a real life. And am I going to be wanting to work these split shifts? Am I going to be wanting to work these nights? And I mean, I had those fears too when I was 22, 23, 24 years old. And I'm damn happy that I did something about it back then.
Yeah.
And it sounds like, you know, it sounds like you were in this phase for about a year and a half, if I'm hitting the timeline right. You know, 2021, you lost your job. You had about 6 months to figure it out. You called your old clients, and then you've been working with us for about a year. So there was about a year and a half where you worked with this other company and kind of started to figure it out. Is that right?
Yeah, it was almost 2 years that I was with them. And I mean, I was connected to that coach through a friend of mine. And the biggest thing that they taught me is that time does equal money. And I remember that first meeting I had with that coach where he said, even if I can't make you more money, if I can save you half the time, you're already making double. And that was like mind blowing to me. I was like, okay.
I might check him on that math. I agree. I agree to the general philosophy, but I don't think it's quite a 1-to-1 comparison. I think that that line changes I think that that's appropriate if you are already making more than enough money.
True.
I think if you're not quite yet, then perhaps that's not an appropriate analysis.
Yeah.
But
at the time it worked for me, right? At the time, and I might have misquoted him like exactly, but I just remember that conversation and being like, you're right. I do need to do something about my time because I'm giving up so much of my free time to be able to do this. And I'm trying to like be a mom too. And I remember saying to my husband being like, I need 2 days a week of childcare. Like I can't keep like momming all day and then doing this all evening. And then just, you know, I'm like, something's going to give, I'm going to have a nervous breakdown. And so I finally put my kids in childcare for 2 days a week. And then I had those 2 days to like focus on my business and build that out. And I went from like 3,000 a month online to hitting 10,000 months consistently. And then that's when I came to OTM because I was like, I need something. I want to move beyond this. I want to do more. I want to get better. I've been with this coach for 2 years. It's time to go another route. And then that's when OTM was last year.
How did you find OTM? How did we find you? How did you find us?
I followed you for a long time and I had like the old like PTDC signups like from, I think I paid like $20 for something like way back in the day for the Trainer Development Center and got like the first like how to train online books like back at the beginning of like COVID. I think I looked at my old like Sam cart and it was like something way back somewhere where I first bought. So I always knew you and I was struggling with the online and I had looked into some other coaches because I wanted to really learn how to do the social media thing because I thought that was the one thing I was really missing. And it just aligned more with what I wanted to do. I didn't want to be like an influencer wearing a sports bra and booty shorts, like doing weird workouts to get clients because it's not the type of client I want. It's not what I want to do. I'm like, I gotta be able to do this another way. And then, I mean, obviously Facebook and Instagram listen to you. So those ads, like I got ads and I had followed you and
I don't think we ran ads back then. That would have been organic. We're running some ads now, not much.
There's something with Melissa's, and so I replied to something about, for that podcast, right?
Yeah, no, I know that one. That was actually a fun, I didn't even know that was happening. That was a different company that interviewed her and then they sent it to me and they're like, yo, she keeps talking about you. You should probably like do something with this. Cause I know the guys who host the podcast, right? And Melissa, of course, is crushing it. And so, we use that to promote, but that's cool to hear because what a lot of people don't know is how many people we work with that have worked with other companies that might have had a good experience, might have not had a good experience, but either way are looking for a change. Maybe it's just a refresh. Maybe it's just the other company, they've kind of achieved what they could achieve with them, whatever it is. And then we take them and scale them up. So people who are doing 5, 10, even 20, 30,000 a month. We took somebody who was doing 50,000 a month, joined back up with us recently and bring them up to whatever, 30, 50, 100,000, right? Because there's different triggers at different points. And a lot of it is, I don't know, overcoming doubts and fears to kind of push past that imaginary line. So Drea is your coach, I think, right? Drea was your coach. And you got on the phone with her and you're like, what do I need to do to be a top student?
We did our first like quick call, and then I had my first big call with her, and I was like, I just want to be the number one student. Like, just, this is what I want to do. Like, tell me what to do and I'm going to do it. I'm like the straight A, like gold star person, like make sure that this happens for me. And she kind of laughed at me, but I was like, I'll literally do everything you tell me to. Like, I wanted, and that, I think that was like the missing piece from the last coaching I had coaching, but like the structure and the strategies and the like step by step and the modules and the frameworks and the scripts, like I didn't have any of that. And so as soon as I like opened up the portal, I was like, oh my goodness, like I'm in heaven. I have check marks to do and I have worksheets to print off, and like it was like my jam, because I'm a nerd, and I just loved being able to have like the full framework built in. So it removes that doubt for sure. Like if you're like, oh, maybe I'm doing this wrong, it's like, well, this is how you do it. And then you can change it up enough to make it sound like you and make it yourself. And then if you follow the process, it works.
Yeah, you start with the best practices.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, God, we don't talk about what we do in OTM enough. But I think that's one of the biggest differences that I've heard with other programs, is the other programs actually lean too heavily on the coach. Like our mentor, like they lean too heavily on their mentor to deliver material that should actually be delivered by modules and education.
Mm-hmm.
I think that a coach's job is to help keep you accountable, is to help keep you there when you're stressing out. Right? Check in with yourself to help you figure out what's best for you to focus on right then. Like, I'm of the opinion that you can't do more than one thing well at once. And so that's why we split the OTM materials, right, as you know, into 4 pillars: content, calls, conversations, and clients. Well, you can't actually get better at more than one of those things at once. And a lot of the problem that people run into is they're never focused at any one given time. They're, trainers that are working hard to build their business, but never getting anywhere. It's because they're kind of trying to do a little bit on all of them at the same time. As opposed to what our mentors do is it's like, yo, we're going to check in with you. We're going to figure out where the biggest lever is. And then my job is to help you take the best practices that we have laid out in this learning module and apply it to your own business, test it, iterate on it, keep making it better, right? And then keep moving forward. Whereas I think a lot of the other companies lean too heavily on the individual mentor to deliver the education.
Yeah.
Whereas my opinion is there's some things that humans do really well. There's some things that computer systems do really well. The way to maximize the experience is to actually optimize both and get them to work together.
And I think the one thing at a time approach works really well with OTM. What I found in the previous mentorship that I did was they kind of it was like drinking water from a fire hose. They just blasted you with everything all at once, and it wasn't strategized according to your individual business. There'd be a group call and everybody would learn the same content. And it was, maybe that applied to me, maybe it didn't. But it wasn't directly taught about like that this is what you need to take from this content to make it better in your business. And that's what I like with OTM, is that you evaluate your whole business up front. You figure out which part you work on best. Those are the calls that you focus on going to. Those are the sheets that you focus on completing. And then you build on that. And so it felt less overwhelming, even though it's a lot of work. It was like, no, I'm focusing on this one thing and I'm going to get all of that done. And then I'm going to take that and build on it by focusing on this next thing. And you can go to as many calls as you want, but you can really just focus on going to the calls that are really related to the one thing that you're working on and do that really, really well. And I felt that change like the first week of doing OTM. I was like, this is exactly what I need, because I was having a hard time being like, okay, I have all this information. Where does it fit? Where does it fit in my business?
And what do you do when?
Exactly.
I get that, man. Yo, there's all these things I want to do. There's all these things I feel like I should be doing. I kind of think I know how to do them all. but in what order? And how do I feel okay focusing on one thing, knowing that by definition, that means I'm not going to be able to focus on something else? God, that can get hard to get over. So what then? What's your day like now? You've got what? Your oldest is about to turn 7. That means your youngest is 4.
My youngest is 4 in February. She's exciting. She's a second born crazy person.
Yeah. Yep.
But I love her.
Tell me about it.
I feel like having a girl, I mean, and not that this doesn't apply to little boys, but having a girl just like makes it that much more important to me that I make this difference in the fitness space, that like you don't have to be on a diet, you don't have to get skinny or like take up space, be strong, do all these things. Like, so I have to catch myself a lot being like, oh, like Kaylee, you can't be like, oh, I feel fat today, or like, what's the, like those type of things have to stop, because that's like a generational thing that I don't want to pass down to my kids. And it became even more clear when I had my daughter. And so I'm trying really hard. But that was a side note, tangent. My day is awesome. I do my mornings with my kids and I drop them both off at daycare and then school. So I like that I can do that, for as stressful as mornings sometimes are. I like that I'm there every morning.
Isn't that the best? I bike Calvin to school. Calvin to school every day. It's the best. It's so much fun. We ride our bikes to school and then we go and lock up our bikes in the front and then we hold hands and walk along the back, and every once in a while he'll yell, "The floor is lava," and we both jump and hang on to the fence as we're walking. And then he's like, "Okay, the floor is not lava," and then we'll both step down on the ground again. Oh, it's so much fun. To be able to be there, to be able to not miss those moments, eh? And then you're done by 4.
4. At the latest. 4. So most of the time, and I either meet my son at the bus on the way home, or I pick up my daughter from daycare, and then my husband does the other one. So we're both home for dinner, but then I can do all the activities. You know, I can go and volunteer in school without having to like schedule a vacation day or get permission. Like, man, sometimes some of the stuff at the big box gym, it was like, oh, it's the end of the month and you're not at sales quota. You have to do 12-hour days. And then I'd be like, okay, that's great. Now I get to not see my kid for even more hours. Like, my schedule said 50 plus hours per week. Like, that's what my employment contract
clients?
Of like, between being a director, being a manager, I had to train clients outside of that. I wasn't allowed to train clients in those hours. So I was just like, I can't keep doing this. And now I feel sometimes it's funny because my husband works like a normal 40-hour a week job. Like, he's off work at 3:30 and comes home, but it's like a very different type of job. And I feel like sometimes there's that like push and pull where he's like, well, you don't really, like, your work's different. And I was like, yeah, my work's different. I get to like chat on podcasts and drink coffee and like do workouts, but it's still like a lot of work. But it's, I try not to take that for granted because it's so much fun to be able to be like, oh, well, maybe I'll just, you know, go to my kid's school today for the day and move some stuff around. And I'm able to do that. Yeah.
I think what you're hitting on is a lot of what gets lost in the marketing of these types of programs, like the Online Trainer Mentorship, because it's very hard to communicate these kinds of benefits succinctly. It's much easier to say, oh, you know, here's this dollar amount. And so whatever, you were doing 3,000 or 4,000, then you were doing 10. Now you're doing whatever you do. Notice we haven't mentioned it. Like, you're doing more than 10. I don't want to mention it because it doesn't matter, and it's a lot and it's enough. But it doesn't really matter because that's not what's important. And that's why I like these longer form type conversations. I mean, the benefits of things like, now if you want to, you can volunteer at your kid's school. You know, Allison and I on Halloween last year dressed up as Batman and Batgirl and handed out pizza. I mean,
pizza
in the middle of the day. Well, like pizza day.
Nice.
Like, we handed out pizza day. To be able to do that kind of stuff, to be able to show up those times, it's so old fashioned. And I feel like it's lost a lot these days. But I mean, my mom was involved in the PTA and the Parent Teacher Association and in the community, and it's more rare, right? But it's such a beautiful thing to be able to do. And I'm just so happy that you're able to do that stuff now. And I mean, aside from, sure, chatting on podcasts and drinking coffee and doing whatever, but it's hard work. And it's particularly, I mean, online training, online fitness is particularly hard work because you have to be in charge of your own schedule and be responsible for your own schedule. And there is a certain difficulty in that we are not trained for, and that is unnatural to us. And that's one of the benefits, too, of having a coach to work with you to talk you off a cliff sometimes or keep you organized or focused. But
yeah.
What's next for you? Is there a next for you?
It's really funny. I remember this one moment. I walk my dog every night.
Okay.
When it's not -40, because I don't walk at -40.
Big dog, small dog? What are we talking here?
She's a husky. So she would walk in -40. She would have zero problem with that, but I won't do it. So I walk her every day. And I remember there was a time when I started this where it felt really almost impossible to think about making like 10 grand a month. It's like, what the heck? Like, who makes that? Right? Like, how do I do this? Right? And then I remember this one moment where that like really flipped for me. And I, instead of like hoping that I would get to a certain place, I actually saw myself there, and I've never gone back. Like that like mindset shift. And like, I remember where I was on the street, like where I was walking, and I remember sending like a voice note to my coach being like, I don't know what just happened, but something just flipped in me. And now it's like, there's moments of like doubt, of course. Like I think like being an entrepreneur is like a roller coaster. Like when it's really good, you're like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. I love having time. I love having this. And then there's days where you're like, you know, I'm back-to-back meetings. Like I didn't make that sale. My revenue's down a little bit this month, but you're going to always have those ups and downs, and just like staying true to your process throughout it is going to be key to overcoming that. But I mean, I want to keep going. I don't want to add more hours, but I want to build out my business more. I want to change more lives. Like I want to be able to retire my husband so that he can spend more time at home with the kids and doesn't have to like work a physical job 8 hours a day for the rest of his life. You know, we're buying our new dream house. So like that's happened. We both got new cars last year, which wasn't the plan. Our cars like busted and broke down, but we had money to like pay for 2 cars in cash. So like that was super sweet. Like, so just to be able to like have these dreams and like not have a ceiling on it. Like I can't imagine going back to a salary and being like, this is literally all I can make for my hours. Like that would scare me more than what I'm doing now. And I think if someone can get over that, to know that like you don't, you know, there's not a ceiling now. Yes, there's going to be ups and downs, but you're not limited by what someone else says you're worth anymore, or what your hours say you're worth. Like it's such a freedom to know that it's like, if I want to do more, I can do more. I know the exact levers I need to pull in order to bring in more business. And I think like, didn't Elon Musk say it, that it's easier to make 10,000 than save 10,000?
It doesn't seem like Elon Musk would ever say anything about $10,000. I feel like
maybe,
that's
but it's still, it holds true that it's easier to make 10,000 than save 10,000. So like just
probably right.
Get the things in place to like know what you need to do to make that, to pull those levers and make that work.
Well, I'm so happy for you, Kaylee, and so happy that you're also a part of our team on the mentorship. It's so cool working with you.
I filled out that application like a month in to my mentorship, and Dre's like, did you like, this is what you want to do? And I was like, yep, I just put my name in, just keep it in there. I'll be that person.
Yeah, I love it.
It was pretty fun. I'm very excited too.
Well, for anybody listening, if you want to know more about the Online Trainer Mentorship, you get to hang out with awesome people like Kaylee and maybe even get to work with her as your mentor. But either way, our community is awesome in there. Isn't our community amazing?
Yes, it's the best. I love it. All the coaches, all the students.
Yeah. Just good people. Just genuinely good people. Yeah, I love being around them. Anyway, if you're interested in that, 2 ways. You can go to onlinetrainermentorship.com, fill out the application, or if you want to have a conversation first, just go to my Instagram. I'm at It's Coach Goodman. Send me a DM that says mentor. Whatever you like more. Doesn't really matter which. They both work. Kaylee, thanks so much. Oh, where can people find you? What's your Instagram? What's if people want to follow up with you and say thank you or ask you questions or whatever, what should they do?
My Instagram is at Kaylee.Bennett.coaching. So that's really where I hang out the most. I'm also on Facebook as Kaylee Bennett, so you can find me.
Kaylee with a K.
Either place. Kaylee with a K.
Kaylee with a K. Kaylee. Okay. Kaylee.Bennett.coaching on Instagram or Kaylee Bennett on Facebook, everybody. Thank you so much, Kaylee. You're awesome. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.